Hey, what's going on, guys? Reed here, and I'm back with another tech video. So this time we're using the same USB for Hackintosh. The instructions take from it some of the previous instructions that we're doing, the easy version. Some of them are the same, some are different, but regardless, it is more advanced. So we are going to go ahead and switch over to this Mac camera. I've got all the instructions right here on like partitioning. There's sources here. I will link all of these links to the Kexts and stuff in the description. And so yeah, we're gonna switch right over to a Mac because the majority of this is actually done on the Mac. The preparing part and getting to the installer is the hardest. Okay guys, we are on the Mac now. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in my USB. These instructions have been tested, by the way. They are fully working. So these, you can ignore these are just the USB. We're going to be removing that. There's a couple ways you can partition this USB, but they're both with terminal. So with terminal, you can do an MBR, 2 partitions. I find MBR the easiest and recommended because of the fact that with MBR, the EFI partition where Clover will be installed is automatically mounted. And with GPT, it's 1 partition. So it's just one. Like, that one is the only one mounted. It's got both the EFI, like bootloader, and the OSX files on it. So basically, I prefer MBR. This is a common misconception with Hackintoshing, but you can still do UEFI with MBR. So for beginners, a lot of people think you have to do GPT for UEFI. Now, if you're doing legacy, you have to do MBR. But if you're doing UEFI, you can do either GPT or MBR. But in my case, I'm going to be doing UEFI and MBR. So to start, you just need to insert your USB and type disk-util list. Now, you'll see a bunch of disks and volumes and all sorts of stuff. Keep in mind, don't erase any that don't say external or don't have the same amount of space as your USB, because if you erase one of these, if you erase a different one, you might end up erasing your hard drive in your computer by mistake. So we're going to be doing disk 2 in my case. It says external. You know it's not inside the Mac, and it's got about 64 gigabytes total. So we know this is the USB. So now we're gonna do disk-util partition disk. Make sure the disk is capital /dev/disk2, because that is what it says for my USB. You're gonna type 2, type MBR. You are gonna type FAT32. Make sure it's case sensitive. I'll link all these commands in the description. Parentheses, I'm going to caps lock it. There it goes. Clover EFI. Put another, they're not parentheses, another quotes, 200 MI. The signal's for it to be 200 megabytes. This is the other partitions where it says HFS plus J. That is like HFS journaled or macOS extended. Another parentheses, install OS X. I keep calling them parentheses, but whatever. Install OS X. We're going to type R. This is just to create it. This is not putting any files on the drive. This is just to get it ready for the files. This usually shouldn't take more than a minute, by the way. It's perfectly normal if it takes just maybe a few seconds, but it shouldn't take that long. But for my case, this is a USB 2.0 drive, so it's probably going to be slower than 3.0. But yeah. As you can see, it says for my disk to S1 as macOS extended journal. That's what HFS plus J is. If you understand these commands and what they are doing, not only what they are doing, but how they are doing it, what's specifying what in the commands, it'll make this really advanced process a lot easier. We're only just getting started. So I'm going to go ahead and just wait for this to finish. As you can see, Clover EFI already pops up right here. Now, by the way, this guide is going to be for macOS Catalina. You should be able to do other ones. I'm going to link the guide where this comes from in the description along with the sources. You might find that helpful as there's some more information there that could prove to be helpful. The main stuff is still in what I'm doing, but for example, it depends on your hardware for a lot of this. For me, I'm installing on the G5070, so I'm going to be taking sources from a few other guides in order to make this. But Unibeast, that's why Unibeast and Multibeast is easier. You don't have to do as much research on what your hardware is, but it can give you more errors because of different hardware types. Now we need to download the Clover installer. I'm going to use the normal build that's by the creators of Clover. You can go ahead and I do the latest release. Download this PKG file. You can also do a Rehab Man fork of Clover. This is just a little, it's just his own version of it and is more to his instructions, but the main things, and it'll still work out regardless. I actually had no success with his build, but you'll try to run this. Sometimes you'll get this error if you run macOS Catalina, that is. To solve that, I can go to Security and Privacy, Open Anyway, then just open, and then it's that easy. You might also get another prompt. I didn't, probably because mine's already been done because of the previous time I did this. But it'll tell you it needs to make a file system read-write. This is different from the other guide. This time, you don't need to disable system integrity protection in most cases. But I've already done that, so in the it changes back every reboot. You want to change install location. This is for UEFI. I'm doing UEFI. I will link instructions for legacy in there too. But you're going to want to always change it to Clover EFI. You don't want to install a Hackintosh hard drive because that's a hard drive on this Mac. We are going to customize. I'm going to do Clover for UEFI booting only. You're going to want to select apt.io memory fix. That's a better driver than these two and tends to have more success. Most of these recommended drivers and the pre-selected stuff should be just fine. Whoops, change something. Want recommended drivers. I don't want any of these. I want this. I want this. Okay, should be good under that section. You don't need to check any of this. Under themes, I like to check black, green, moody. Should work just fine. Double check I'm doing the instructions here. For legacy, it's a little different, but once again, I'll link that in the description. But then I should be able to just proceed. Of course, prompts me for my username and password, just because I have that system-wide protection enabled. This takes a matter of seconds. This is a small installation that doesn't really take long, but usually you're going to get an error in the future that says it's trying to install the system volume when you install it on the Hackintosh, because we're going to repeat this process for the Hackintosh. In fact, we need to, because of the fact that it's just, you got to do it, because otherwise you'd have to do it from the USB. I'm going to keep this. Now this part, what? Oh, I clicked to sources. We need an important driver here. We need HFS+.EFI. This is a driver. Without it, your partitions for your installer will not pop up. We're just going to copy that to EFI, Clover, drivers, and UEFI. It might say driver 64 UEFI, but if you're doing legacy, it won't even show up and it's built in. So it'll work just fine with that. Then, now this is important because if you're installing on an SSD that's NVMe, you need to read the information in this. I will link that in the description. And now we're going to prepare some Kexts. Kexts are basically drivers for Apple computers. I'm going to just go ahead and show you how to do it. I'm using a special driver just for Lenovo's, this one that most people won't use just because the other one's incompatible. You got to go ahead and just download this. Now, most of the time the process is the same, but there are a few differences. So now that I've got that downloaded, I like to open a new Finder window. Go here, navigate to the folder where Kexts are. You're going to delete all of this, leave everything, delete everything but other. Then you're going to place all your Kexts in here. So this is a Kext. You're going to drag it over. Then I'd like to delete it from here. You don't have to. And so then I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these. Fake SMC is needed. Now, the one that is next to it, Voodoo PS2 controller, that is one that you need for the mouse and keyboard. But basically, you're going to want to read the README, find where the download link for pre-built ones are, download it. Then usually it is in the release folder. Now, sometimes they're not, and copy only the Kext with that name. You're not going to copy any of these other Kexts here. But, because that's important, that'll give you way too much. Voodoo PS2 controller will work on most systems. If it doesn't, you can use Apple PS2 Smart Touchpad. That's what I use. I'm not going to use it. USB inject all. Go ahead and use that. It'll be helpful. It lets you use all your USB ports. Just so that. And it'll be helpful for reaching the installer for sure. So notice how I'm looking at the README, finding downloads. I'm clicking it. And then I'm going, just waiting. Then I'm clicking usually the latest download is the best. Then I'm finding it in here. It's under release. Do not copy the debug Kext. That would be a bad idea. Okay, this one, generic USB XHCI, usually only non-Intel USB 3.0, but this is not applicable to my computer. I'll still link it in the description like the rest of this, but I don't need it. Most of these, Lilu, maybe referred to as Lilu, I don't know. Probably said it right the first time. This one is usually needed, but this one's a bit different. For any of them with the name right here, you need to click releases to find it. It will not show it in the README. Under releases, that's where you find the pre-built ones. Just going to click this one, make sure it says release. Just going to copy the Kext. So I'm just going to go through here and do the rest of these. I'm going to keep recording. And yeah. Now this one, SATA-unsupported. Once again, it's not needed, but it would be helpful. But this one's a bit different. You don't copy all the files in here. You go to Hack Tools Master and Kext, and then only copy SATA-unsupported. This is just for certain SATA controllers, even Intel ones, that aren't compatible with macOS, because Apple doesn't use them in their hardware. This will load them. I tend to use it because there's no harm in doing it if it's not needed. FakePCIID. I tend to use it just because if you use FakePCIID and then copy the Broadcom Wi-Fi one, that will really help you because you'll have a chance at getting Wi-Fi. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't work on all systems, but if you it won't work on mine. But if you copy both the Broadcom Wi-Fi one and the normal one, you might be able to get Wi-Fi on your computer in post installation. We're gonna put Ethernet in. It's very helpful during the post install. I am gonna put Ethernet. Find it helpful. Then I actually linked the Ethernet one in here. Now you're gonna select the one from the links in the description that matches yours. For mine, it should be this one. Just gonna download it. Being a little slower than usual. But just always remember to read the README in the release folder. Okay, that should be all the kexts, if I'm correct. But now we're going to do config.plist. It's an important file. The one in here, almost always wrong. You don't want to use it. With this one will most likely give you plenty of errors that you have to fix. So for this one, you can choose one from your hardware, for this repository, but because that's the one most people are going to use. But I actually have one special for Lenovo. So I'm going to do that one. Once again, during this, you're always going to want to look up a guide on how to do yours, just in case. This is a general guide. Just going to download this. And for mine, it's actually config install. You're always going to want to rename it to be config.plist. You can't have config install. You can't have config HD 4400 for Intel HD graphics 4400. You gotta name it config.plist. Otherwise, it will not work. Clover will only load config.plist. Then that's the config.plist out of the way. So then now we're going to actually use this install OSX partition that's empty here, and we are going to go ahead and create it. We're going to create it into a macOS install partition. Now, for this, you could type this long command right here and replace this with the application you download for macOS. But before you can do any of that, we have to go in here and download macOS. This is the same as the other guide. I'll press get. Yep, download. Now that's going to take some time, so I will be back once it is finished. Okay guys, I am back, and you'll notice that it is finished. When this window pops up, go ahead, close it. You can also close settings too, close the App Store. Now we can actually start creating it. Now instead of typing this long command, there is an easier way you can do this. You can simply go into here, go to Applications, go to your Install macOS Catalina application or whatever your macOS version is. Click Show Package Contents. When you right-click it, go to Contents, Resources, Create Install Media. Now type sudo. Drag Create Install Media over to here. And you don't have to change the name in this method. Then you're going to type right here. You're going to type 2 minus signs in volume. Then you're going to go here, press go to folder, make sure it says /volumes. You are going to drag install OSX into here. And that's it. You just press enter. It'll prompt you for your password. May or may not prompt you to erase the volume. If it does, just type Y and press return. It's started erasing it. It's just disappeared from here. And it will go ahead and create your macOS install disk for you. The other way you could have done this is with these commands I will link in the description called base binaries. There's a few downsides with this one. You want to use create install media if it's available. But you once again have to change this here to the name of the application you're doing. And you're going to want to just run all this. And the only downside is that it won't create a recovery partition. This create install media will create you a recovery partition on your Hackintosh. So you can use that instead of the USB when you want to recover it. Base binaries just takes the base system.dmg in the applications and we'll change it around and make it to where it goes on the USB. So it's not like an actual official install. So yeah guys, I will be back as soon as this is finished because this tends to take a while, about 30 minutes or so. Okay guys, I am back. I ejected the USB already. Got it sitting right here in front of me. Because you can go ahead and eject it after you've made the installer. Just want to go over the BIOS settings that need to be enabled or disabled on your Hackintosh. You need VTD, virtualization for direct I/O, should be disabled if possible. In case you can't do this, config.pos will disable it. Data execution prevention, DEP, enabled. Secure boot, disabled. Legacy boot, you can go ahead and enable it, but boot UEFI if you have it. CSM, compatibility support module, you can enable or disable it. You probably want to enable it, but boot UEFI. Fast boot should be disabled. Boot from USB, or sometimes called boot from external, needs to be enabled. SATA mode should be AHCI, and the TPM should be disabled. Now, the first generation Intel HD graphics aren't well supported. They require a lot of post-install patching. This link here has been provided for that. I'll go ahead and link that in the description. But we're going to go ahead and switch over back to my phone, and we can do the Hackintosh. Okay guys, I am back, and so here we have the Hackintosh. Got my USB ready. We're going to go ahead and plug this bad boy in and turn it on. Following the steps to press the side button or get to the startup menu as usual. Okay, we need to go ahead and select boot menu. I'm going to move this a little bit closer. It needs to be EFI USB device, because I did UEFI. Now, in this time, we're going to boot macOS as normal. These options here won't be here just because I had macOS already installed. But we're going to boot macOS. I'm not going to use verbose, just because I already know that there shouldn't be any errors. But you probably want to use verbose by going into this options in Clover on the previous screen, and then under boot arc typing -V. But we're going to let this boot, and this Hackintosh should work just fine once we get it installed. You're probably going to see a nagging screen about the mouse and keyboard not working and need to plug them in. That is perfectly normal, and I've got keyboard and mouse I can plug that in for. Now notice that does take a little longer to boot, not only because it's the USB, but it will do the same for a hard drive. Really nothing beats a Mac in a Hackintosh world. Should almost be there now. Finishing up its final steps. Yep, that screen flickering shows Kexts are being loaded. And usually means it's gonna just go all the way to the end now. It always does, guys. Yep, there it is, nagging screen about keyboard and mouse. I'll go get those real quick. Okay, I'm coming back with the keyboard and the mouse. Plug in the mouse first. And when you see an arrow appear, you're going to click that. Keyboard pops up. Plug the keyboard in. Then click the arrow. Select the language to be English. This is really, this here's the same steps as the other tutorial, the easy way. Because no macOS installation will really be different. Of course, we got to select disk utility first. We've got to erase the disk. Erase it completely. All the volumes. Okay, that is complete. We can close U now. We can install macOS. Basically, you need to just click continue, yada yada yada, accept the license agreement, select install and untitled, or whatever you named your disk. Then this will begin installing. Now, from here on out, I'm going to cut the video out considering the fact that this takes a while. But if it ever reboots, which it should, and it prompts you to boot from Clover, select macOS install from your hard drive name if it's there. If it's not, boot from the USB. It'll most likely be there. But yeah, so I will be back. Okay guys, I am back. Here we are, Hackintosh working. Mouse is moving, and we're not using the keyboard and mouse anymore. We're using the touchpad. And also, for dual GPU laptops, NVIDIA Optimus, mainly, you might want to keep NVIDIA drivers from loading. So I'll link that in the description. But we're going to go ahead and select our region and whatnot. Just press continue. These settings should be right. You can go ahead and click on. I'm going to say my computer is not connected to the internet for now because I'm using Ethernet on my test computer over there, download some files and whatnot. I'll get that set up later. Yep, we can just press continue, don't transfer any information. We have to agree to the terms and conditions. We'll create a computer account. Just gonna move this aside. Okay, should be created now. Let's see here. Oh, I had to press continue. Oh, never mind, passwords don't match. Better try it again. Okay. There we go. Should be creating. Okay, now we're on the Express Setup screen. With Express Setup, you can go ahead and just press continue, usually. I will share crashing and link data. Really, most of this is, mostly this is user preferences at this point. Okay, I like auto. I don't know about you. It'll say setting up your Mac. And then in just a few seconds, we will be taken to the desktop. And we'll know everything's working. Okay, now I'm gonna go get the Ethernet. Getting the Ethernet here. I'm gonna plug this in. I should be able to connect to the internet now. I'm gonna double check that. There's a few post-installation tasks that we need to do. Just to make sure that all the drivers are working and stuff. Okay, Ethernet is working. You should have a working bootloader. Actually, no. You need to install the bootloader first before we do anything. So open up Safari. We're just gonna go into Clover. I need both hands here. Clover bootloader. Now you can click the SourceForge one if you want, but just keep in mind something. It's not gonna work. It'll redirect you to a different place because of the fact that okay, it's downloading, but it'll redirect you, tell you you're in the wrong place. You can go ahead and follow the URL on that. Man, I thought Ethernet was supposed to be fast. Should be working. Let me refresh that. But basically, it'll tell you to go to a different URL. which is perfectly normal, because watch. It starts opening text edit. You are in the wrong place. This is because they moved it to GitHub. Now keep in mind, when you're command C'ing, it's actually, command key is the alt key in Windows. That's what they correspond to. So you need to press alt C and alt V to copy and paste. Now, now this is the first thing you should do. Above everything else, the first thing you should be doing is installing the bootloader. Just use the same version you used on the ESB. Go ahead and just, this time we don't need a password, I don't think. We need to go ahead and say that it's from an identified developer. Yep, now this one you might get the prompt. Yep, it was just because of the fact that with mine, I had already done it. Press continue, continue. Now, hard disk drive install is a little bit different. You still need to press customize. You need to select the same options as before, but there's a couple more things you need to do. You can install Clover preferences pane, that's optional. I like doing it. You have to check these. You might read about these and see what they do. Then you can go ahead and install. Yeah, it'll say it's incompatible because it's trying to install content to the EFI partition. Install anyway. That's perfectly fine. It runs pretty quickly. Close it. I'd keep it. Now, this will mount your EFI partition, something you might want to do every now and then. We'll get to that in a minute. Go to EFI, Clover. You might check for Kexts. We're probably going to see it already has them all copied. However, this is mainly because I don't think when you wipe a Mac, it doesn't wipe your EFI partition. So some of these are probably not in the list of Kexts in the USB. I'm going to show you how to get to those. So you can follow a different guide called Patching Laptop DSDTs/SSDTs if you want. It's way more advanced. You really want to be familiar with the programming language it uses in order to use it. But instead, we can install the Kexts with Terminal. So what you're going to want to do is, of course, open Terminal. You are going to want to type git in the terminal. It prompts you to install developer tools. We will go ahead and do it and accept the license agreement. Now, it tends to take some time. We'll see how fast it moves with Ethernet. But you need to install the command line developer tools, otherwise it will not work. Okay, it's only going to take about a minute. I think we'll be fine. But basically, we're going to run some terminal commands here, and we will get it up and running. These will vary depending on your model. I'm using ones for the Lenovo G5070, just because this is the computer this is. So basically, with that, you're going to want to go ahead and Google what your model is. Find your model, Google it, find out what it is, and then you can follow a different guide, because really the best thing you can do is compile sources and find out what works for you. But most of the Kexts that I linked should work for everyone. That's why there's some alternates. That's why there's a bunch of different tools you can use and different ways you can go. For example, MBR GPT, because not everything works for everyone. But I'm going to let this thing install, and I'll be back soon. Okay guys, I am back. Software has been installed. Close that. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to type makedir, MKDIR, and just type this. These will all be in the description once again. I typed it wrong. Not gonna misspell that. Then you're gonna CD to it. Then you're gonna type this longer command, git clone. This is where the git comes in. This is why you need it. It's gonna be github.com/the slash, and make sure this is case sensitive. Lenovo X50 macOS, then type lenovo.git. Then we'll go ahead and clone it. Shouldn't take too long. Now this part, yeah, you're gonna do /x50.sh. In fact, wait, you need to cd lenovo.git. Then now, you're gonna type /x50.sh. 2 -signs, download requirements. We'll go ahead and download your macOS tools. If some of them fail, it's perfectly normal and shouldn't really matter too much. Just a warning, some are probably gonna fail. Okay, none failed that time. Then we're going to do /x50.sh again. We're going to do install downloads. And probably going to prompt for your password. Go ahead and let that do its thing. Shouldn't take too long at all. Coming up, it's going to depend on your series. You see, there's already some errors. No such file or directory. Perfectly fine. You can go ahead and ignore it. The main Kexts that need to install should work. And there's a bunch of text that most people don't understand on the screen. When you see the prompt, like the normal one, you'll know that it's done. Even more text, and then it's finished. Now, if you're using a G series, a G50, a G5070, a G4070, then you're gonna want to CD. Make sure you're still CD'd to lenovo.git. You're gonna type make, then make install G50. At least I think it's G5070 and G4070. It might be G5060. But you need to type that. It built it. Now, if you're using the Z series, like for Lenovo Z5070 and whatnot, you'd CD to it, and instead of typing make and make install G50, you type make install Z50. Couple more things. We're almost there. You need to disable hibernation because of the fact that it's not supported on Hackintosh. So you're going to type sudo pmset hibernate mode, and you need to type a 0. Then this probably won't work for me because I've already done it. Sudo rm/var/vm/sleep image. Yep, it is a directory. The next command you would type is sudo mkdir/var/vm/sleep image. Now, one of the final things we need to do is make sure we've got the final config.plist. And make sure just you're cd into the same directory, x50.sh, and you're gonna type install config. Let it do its thing. It worked. Now, the last thing we need to do is mount EFI. You might need to do this in the future if you need to change Kexts and stuff. So what you need to do is you need to simply do sudo disk-util mount EFI. Then it's already mounted. But to unmount it, you need to do disk-util unmount EFI. Then it does the same thing, except it unmounts it. And a quick note before I wrap up, a couple of them. If you used Apple PS2 Smart Touchpad, when you run these commands, it will install the Voodoo PS2 controller. This is why you need to mount EFI. You need to mount EFI, remove PS2 controller, and go to the ESP and copy Apple PS2 Smart Touchpad into the same folder that corresponds to the USB on the EFI partition. And another thing is you do not want to use Find My Mac to lock it. If you do that, it's going to be very hard to fix. I might include a link in the description to help you to unlock it, because it's very difficult. I don't suggest it at all. But yeah, guys, anyways, that is going to do it for this video. Everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.